Hey everyone, it's Nico, and before we get started with my review for Byte the Bullet, I unfortunately need to start this off with a disclaimer because this game features a lot of flashing and bright lights. So if you have a history of epilepsy or just have photosensitivity issues in general, please close this review and do not purchase this game because it's going to impact you in a very negative way because the entirety of the game has consistently flashing lights in the background. And even for me, as a player that does not have photosensitivity issues, I did find it to be a bit rough on the eyes. So please click off this video if you have photosensitivity issues. Now with that important aspect, and probably the worst part of the game mentioned and kind of briefly out of the way, let's dive into what this is. Now in Byte the Bullet, you play as an antivirus, and each of its components are affected by this, so you need to clean them up one by one. Each of the components serves as its own world and has its own theme, like the hard disk will test your memory, the video card will certainly test your sight, the sound card your hearing and rhythm, the power supply visually, and the cooling system is more of like a measurement type of thing, but that's what they advertise, so that's what it is. You can choose to play any of these 5 worlds in any order that you want. It's pretty open in that regard, and you'll earn powers towards the end of each world that you can then equip. Now the way these are handled is there's Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin are the zeros and the ones. The zeros are the actual coins that affect these powers. The ones just allow you to jump again with your jetpack, which the way your little antivirus friend handles is this is a run and gun. And you have a temperature meter in the left corner. If you shoot for too long, this will overheat. It'll start to shoot slower. And so you really need to kind of manage that. You can't just go in guns blazing 24/7 like you can in a Contra game. And then also the meter above that is your jump. So you can do like a dash, you can do a high jump, and you can do like this 45-degree angle kind of air jump dash thing that you really got to get used to the trajectory of to make certain jumps, otherwise you'll find yourself plummeting to your death pretty frequently. And that's the core of the way your character handles. You won't ever earn any new abilities other than these. There are some bonus levels where your character will play a little bit differently, but as far as mobility goes, this is how you'll handle throughout the entirety of the game. The powers are more of like modifiers and buffs versus like new abilities. So just to kind of set the expectations, that's how your character handles, and that's how he'll handle from start to finish. Now, depending on how you decide to tackle these worlds, really depends on how the game's gonna look, because if you decide to do the power supply first, for example, that will help with some of the light flashing, because the whole game has this lightning effect to it, where there's these constant white flashes. And the reason why you can't turn these off, I think, is because sometimes they show you secrets and show you hidden things in the background. And I understand the significance of it in this game, but I really wish they would have went a different way with it and not put so much of an emphasis on it. Because like I said in the beginning, this is going to alienate some players because they won't be able to handle the consistent flashing. And for me, I don't have photosensitivity issues, and I really hated this aspect of the visual presentation because the constant flashing was just like burning my eyes. So when I got the power supply area finished, that was a huge improvement because it makes that effect a bit more subtle. Additionally, the game starts out in black and white. Eventually, when you clear the virus from the video card, you will then add in color. So there's a lot to it in that regard. Depending on the path you take will depend how the game looks. I mean, if you do the video card last, you could essentially play through almost the entire game in black and white. I wouldn't recommend that because the video card, I think, is a pretty important area to clear. I would definitely probably finish that first or second, but hey, that's just my 2 cents on it. And eventually, after you play through a few levels, you'll get to the end level boss. The boss level always has a hidden power, and then you'll also get one just for defeating the boss. The bosses play pretty similarly because they are kind of the same virus infecting your whole PC. They're different depending on which area you're in, but the core of how they attack you and kind of the way they work, I guess, is pretty similar. So some players might find that to be a bit repetitive. I didn't really mind that because it was different enough. Additionally, on each of the worlds, on the third level, there's a hidden secret exit. And if you find the secret exit, you get to play some lost levels. And these bonus levels are some of the best parts of the whole game, so I highly recommend you look for them. You do earn additional powers if you clear them, and they draw inspiration. To say heavily would be understating it. Some of them are like verbatim levels from Castlevania or Mario, and there's a lot of inspiration drawn from 80s and 90s games. There's plenty of references throughout this just as a whole into gaming in general. Portal references and Doom, and there's so many that it's pretty interesting to read some of these and kind of place what it's referencing. I knew a lot of them. There's some I didn't know, but for the majority of them, I knew what they were. And these bonus levels are the best part of the game because their gameplay is very different from the core run and gun gameplay of the regular levels. So I played through all 5 of the bonus levels, and I had a lot of fun with all of them except one. And I'm not going to show all of the bonus levels because the fun of it is playing through it for yourself for the first time. So I'm only going to show a little bit of gameplay here from them as to not spoil the charm and the excitement of finding them for yourself if you decide to play this. And the effort is certainly worth the reward, as I found these to be a lot of fun. So if you play this, definitely seek these out, and I hope you have as much fun with them as I did. And to be honest, I have no idea how some of this is even allowed, because some of the assets look like they're lifted directly out of the source material. But hey, I'm not a legal expert. The level designs just in general across each of the 5 worlds are varied, and I pretty much enjoyed all of the worlds except for maybe the power supply. There was like 1 or 2 levels where it's really dark and you're just kind of playing through to the flash of the lights. And this is what I'm talking about with the flashing lights. They really overly relied on those as a part of the gameplay. Some people won't dislike that. I definitely did, because it was a bit too much. Like, there's a lot of levels where there's flashing lights where I feel like they shouldn't be there. If you wanted just one world themed around it, like, okay, I get that. But it's throughout the entire game, and that was my biggest complaint, is that there's just constantly flashing lights. It's just way too much. In the regular levels, in the bonus levels, a lot of the time in the boss fights, like, you can't avoid it. There's just always flashing lights. It's just too much. My next biggest complaint, unfortunately, did come from a bug where I lost a ton of progress. Now, I did take the time to report this bug to the publisher on their Discord. They said they were going to look into it. I don't entirely know what caused it, but I'm going to tell you what I think caused it so that if you play this, hopefully you can avoid it. I was playing through the Prince of Persia RAM level, and I was on level 4, and I was getting a bit frustrated with it, and I had been playing for a while, so I thought I'd quit out, come back to it later, go get some lunch, and then play some more. And when I quit out, that must have caused a bug, and all of my progress up to that point was pretty much deleted. I lost all my powers, all my completed levels. The only thing it saved was that I had completed one of the bosses, but the levels leading up to the boss were no longer completed, which is incredibly weird. And this was 3 finished worlds out of the 5 that I lost my progress on, so that was super frustrating. So those are my main 2 complaints, are the flashing lights and that bug I ran into. There was other little kind of glitches that I ran into that weren't really that big of a deal. Like, sometimes I would get stuck in a place where I don't think I was supposed to be. There were times where, like, the hitboxes feel a little bit wonky. and I got hit by something that looked like it should have missed me. But for the most part, it controlled really great, and everything felt pretty tight about it. I liked the pixel art for it, probably more so in the RAM chip levels, because those are more like the 8-bit NES style, versus the regular art, which is more of like that old school, like late 80s computer style. The music was okay, wasn't great, wasn't bad. Sound effects were pretty good. There's some repetition here from the level designs and the enemies. There's not a lot of variety across the enemy designs. Like I said before, the bosses play pretty similar to one another. They're a little bit different, but they're all kind of the same virus, so they're only tweaked a little bit for each world. And then when you get to the final world, which is the 6th, this is where it gets really repetitive, because all the levels feel exactly the same. They're tweaked, again, just a little bit, but this felt like filler. There's a ton of filler here, because the level is almost exactly the same with only minor tweaks, and you have to play through it multiple times. You fight the same boss multiple times, which will eventually be the final boss. That felt like they were trying to pad out the game a little bit, and it was a little bit unnecessary, so I had to kind of slog through that final world. So expect that when you get to the 6th world. Overall, in the moment, I was a bit frustrated with Byte the Bullet between the bug, losing my progress, the consistent flashing lights, but after I rolled the credits and it was all said and done, I can look back at it and say I did have fun with it, especially on the bonus levels. I can't emphasize enough how much the bonus levels are absolutely worth seeking out and playing. They're the best parts of the whole game. A lot of them mesh together, 2 different games, and it works surprisingly well. I really enjoyed the Castlevania and Ghosts and Goblins level. That was probably my favorite one, but if you've been following my channel for a while, you know I'm a huge Castlevania fan, and if you haven't, well, then maybe you should hit that subscribe button. So I could say that I definitely recommend Byte the Bullet, as long as you don't have any issues with the flashing lights. I kinda did, so hopefully the developer in their future games will keep this to a minimum and not overuse it like I felt they did here. It has some good level designs, controls really great, and the powers are interesting and pretty rewarding to unlock and kind of mix and match which ones you're going to use. So this is one that I can definitely recommend you check out. It's pretty cheap and it's pretty fun. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, and I'll be sure to get back to you. But until next time, have a good one.